Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching. Welcome to the online discussion for the documentary movie Byeway, created by the Czech director Ivo Bystřičan. The screening is organized by KineDok. KineDok is a community-driven distribution platform of creative documentaries. I'm very happy for the chance to discuss and reflect a little bit on the movie Byeway and delve a little bit deeper into the difficult and complex questions that it raises. But firstly, let me introduce you to our wonderful guests. Ana-Maria Marinescu-Pălăduș, correct me please if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Anna is an economist and also a co-founder of Repair 21, an association dedicated to promoting sustainable development in Romania. She coordinates various initiatives dedicated to responsible consumption, responsible management, climate development, education, and is also involved in various initiatives for resilient community development. She co-founded the local action group GAL Turnu 21, one of the first urban legs established in Romania, which aims to promote the inclusive and sustainable development of the most vulnerable urban areas in Turnu Măgurile. Trying my best. Our second guest is the director of the movie. His name is Ivo Bystřičan, he's a documentary film director, playwright, and a screenwriter who is based in Czech Republic. His work usually focuses on social and environmental themes with a sociological accent. He's also involved in the playwriting and production of documentary broadcast. In the addition to independent documentaries, he is also interested in bringing environmental and economic issues to the TV and cinematic audiences, for example, with the primetime TV series Eco Story or Industria series. Welcome. Lastly, I would like to introduce myself. I'm going to be the host of today's discussion. My name is Anna Tabášková, and I currently work as an environmental consultant and also a researcher in the field of climate storytelling. Furthermore, I also organize the science popularization festival Academia Film Olomouc and Festival Prague Science Film Fest. I'm so happy that we've got the chance to discuss the movie, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Hello.
Hello, thank you for your invitation.
Hello. My first question would probably be very general. Is just how do you reflect on the movie? What were some of your thoughts when you were watching it? Both of you. Whoever wants to start.
I can start because I'm more from the outside. First of all, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to have this discussion with you related to this documentary that I absolutely loved. And I'm not saying this because I participate in this discussion, but I loved it from various viewpoints. First of all, from an artistic one, it's very sensitive, full of emotions. Both from a visual but also from an acoustic viewpoint. And I think it brings us in the right direction to create a complex connection with nature, which is a character of the documentary. But as an activist, because this is my main, let's say, job and what I'm doing in my life, I particularly loved it because it raises a question related to the way we develop our societies over the last decades and the last century, which is a lot based on progress, material progress, development, and the narratives that we build around it. And it's an issue about which we are discussing very seldomly in our societies, especially in the Eastern ones. Because it has a huge power of attraction and it's very difficult to contest it. And I think we need documentaries and artistic outputs like these ones that enable us this type of discussion so that we can put them into question. So these are like my first thoughts around around it.
Yeah, and what about you, Ivo?
I'm quite surprised that this movie, which is now, I think, 12 years old, still can say something to the people. I'm very, very lucky about it because in a time of production of the shooting, it was a tough thing to shoot because basically there was happening nothing for years. Like imagine you have to do your graduation movie. It has some deadlines. You are shooting, and there's nothing to shoot because the construction goes nowhere. Everybody's pissed off. Nobody wants to shoot with you because the thing takes that long time that everybody is just bitter about it. And you just have to do your graduation movie, and it doesn't have any end. But thanks to it, and this is what I really like on documentaries, that you don't know what happens, and you don't know what your material will finally say, and it's very adventurous thing to do. The time, the complexity of things happening was striking, and it was very difficult to me to go through and come up uh, with a way how to take the story and tell it to the public. And I was considering so many levels of the experience and of the nature of subject and actors who were taking part in a whole thing. But finally, I'm very glad that maybe we were able to develop kind of story that is universal. To me, it never was, not even in the beginning, just the story of one Czech highway that that came to kind of bad end. It's a more universal story about the communication. Maybe we should say that in Czech language we are using the word communication also for the roads. We have like regional communications, state communication, and we mean by that just the road. And what I was trying to follow was the disruption of that communication on the background of the construction of another communication that should connect people there and here, but made another people be far from each other more than before.
Mhm. Thank you for both of the answers. I think that both of you actually started multiple sub-themes already, and already during your answers, I was thinking of other topics that need to be raised. Thank you for raising the question of documentaries and art within all the environmental issues. Firstly, I would like to ask you, Anna, how do you perceive that? Like, what is the role of art, and maybe more specifically also documentaries within environmental conflicts? Because do you feel they could be somewhat of mediator, maybe, or like showing, or what are your thoughts about it? And maybe after that you can continue with the same question, Ivo, because I'm sure that you have also a lot of thoughts on that.
I definitely think that arts and culture should strongly support the ecological and social causes. I mean, art shouldn't be neutral, as we are taught in schools. I think it should be very political, especially in our today's societies, in which we have like absolutely major ecological and social problems. So art shouldn't be outside of this ground and just speak about the beauty of the world, but should interfere and make us understand and create vibrations with this world which is troubled. So I think it has a huge potential of emancipation, of making people aware of the times in which we are living, of showing us stories of people which are affected by this. I particularly love this in the documentary, this stories about families, all kinds of families, some which are positively or negatively affected by this highway. The stories of an oak, so also the non-humans which are there. If we're not using arts and culture to tell this kind of stories about the people, the individual destinies which are involved in our societies, in the huge transformation of our societies, then they won't be heard. So the potential, it's quite huge. I think, unfortunately, that we are living in a world in which this potential is not absolutely at all used and tackled. Because, as I said, a lot of people that I know, at least in Romania, they consider that art should be very neutral, that we shouldn't bother people with this kind of negative or troubling issues. And there are also situations in which the arts and culture sectors are also financed by large corporations coming from fossil fuel, from energy, especially here in my country. I mean, it's very rare to have cultural actors which don't have this type of synergies, if I can call them like that, with the capital, with the big capital. And I think in this situation, it's quite difficult to speak about Anthropocene, about ecological crisis, climate crisis, biodiversity loss, about poverty, etc. It's not the kind of speech and narratives that the public wants to hear, especially if you're financed by this kind of actors. But as we have huge challenges ahead of us, I think this creates also huge opportunities, including for the arts and culture sectors to speak about this kind of topics.
Couldn't agree more. Are there any thoughts on your mind, Ivo, if you wanted to add something?
Well, when you were speaking, I was thinking about that the issues we are tackling as a society and individuals many times are very complex. And we are taught that we should use like the so-called critical thinking. That would be great if we use the critical thinking, but there's a problem with that because as the problems are complex, or we know all the problems are complex, like the stage of intelligence we have as a society drives us to know that everything is complex. And then it's a tough thing to think critically because it means too much work, right? And also, every one of us always says, I don't have a time. We don't have a time. In our contemporary society, nobody has a time. Time disappeared. Nobody has got it. And to me, especially movie, can bring you something that overcomes the fact you don't have a time, and you don't want to dedicate too much work to critically think about complex things, because if you work on movie, you work on it few months, or you work on it so many years as I did. It doesn't matter, but it means the experience of the place, of the people, of the director, of the whole crew, of everything else, of the books that were read by the directors, by the cinematographers. You have 90 minutes long film, or even shorter, or maybe longer, but this whole heavy experience is compressed in this short thing. So if you, for example, invite the public and you want to show people something before some discussion about even abstract and complex thing, the movie can very much help to it, and it also can be shared in very live experience. We also can read the books collectively, but it takes a longer time, and it's not that emotional thing as a collective screening of the movie before some discussion. And also, the movies are not just about the facts, and we know that pure facts don't work very much because we are like selective. We just accept the facts that we like. We ignore the facts we dislike. But the movie is not just factual thing. It's about emotion, and it can be driver of very abstract things that we wouldn't be able or capable to read as a text. But when they are presented in the movie in artist or poetic or such a way, um, we can approach it much more easily, and then we can talk about it also much more easily. So for me, uh, like the movies and documentary movies are a very like ideal way for a collective discussion on difficult things.
Most definitely. You've also mentioned just now that the movie has been filmed for quite a long time. So could you tell us how long have you been filming it? Whether I guess a lot of the audience, or mostly the international audience, would be curious whether the highway is finally done or finished or not. So if you could tell more about that.
Yeah, it took me, I think, the shooting like 6 years. And it's a problem when you are studying for MA level of the film school. You should do it in like 3 years. I mean, it's a difficult thing that takes that long time to construct a short piece of highway, because that D8 highway, it was the movie is not about the whole construction. Like the most part of D8 was already constructed. It's a highway that goes from Germany to Prague, the capital of Czech Republic, and it was, I think, last 16 kilometers or something like that to be built. And that plan was very old. It was planned like decades before we, as a crew, randomly came to the place and found out from the locals that in a very beautiful landscape, the highway will be built. And the time our interest started, and we started the shooting about what's happening here, and it was based on two characters. One of them was the well-known environmental activist Miroslav Patrik from the Children of the Earth, and the other one was the construction engineer who was responsible for the whole project. And we are following what's happening in the space between them. And it was at the first sight happening nothing, because citizens were just waiting for the highway to be finished, because it was important to them, because the trucks, heavy trucks, international trucks were going through their villages, and they made their lives very difficult. And we entered the site in the moment when the public meaning or the public opinion about the highway was like fixed or solid already. Everybody wanted the highway, and everybody was very angry at environmental activists because they thought that he is just postponing the construction for no real good reason. Like the nature protection and stuff like that was not in the game already. And it was very different from the time we were not shooting yet, and we were not even knowing that the construction will be happening there. Before that, people were not that strict about this. People were raising question about destroying a very unique landscape, because it's called Czech Highlands. Czech Highlands is very unique volcanic nature landscape, and we can find something similar only in France, if we speak about Europe. So it's the space where it's not that easy just to put the highway, because you fuck up many important things. And this was the core of the conflict, because the environmentalists wanted, and it was not just activists, it was also geologists and other specialist scientists, even from the state agencies, who wanted to go with this highway through tunnels, because the tunnel doesn't destroy the nature of the landscape. But that didn't happen in the way like the geologists and activists suggested, and the conflict was ingrained in the whole construction from the beginning. And I wanted to follow that because I thought it's a very multi-layered conflict that will show us the nature of the contemporary politics and the media and activism and limits of the citizenship. And yeah, I think that it really happened.
Thank you for that summary, and also a little bit of insight on how the movie was actually made. Yeah, one of the things that I really appreciated about the movie was like the deep understanding that it tries to, emphasize that there are different interests on all of the sides. And what I found very funny, like I wrote some of the quotes from the movie, like, you care more about bugs than about people. And that's something that you hear a lot, right, in all the environmental discussions. So I'm very happy that you were able to, somehow depict what the patterns usually are in environmental conflicts, and also that you and the movie was able to encapsulate some of the abstract things that you mentioned. Both of you actually mentioned at the very beginning of the discussion, some of the things that we aren't able really to describe only by words. But for example, also one thing that I found very funny during the movie is that you can actually see the people being somewhat in the same position as the animals, and realize that as humans are part of the whole world. And it doesn't need to be said out loud, right? Like the people are suffering the same way as the animals from all the noises made by the trucks, and that is actually driving the conflict as well. So you just mentioned the limits of citizenship, and I'm curious what both of you have in mind when talking about that. Maybe we can start with Anna.
Yeah, but just to continue among the funny phrases from the movie, also related to the environmental speeches, it's one character saying that the frogs are better than we are. I laughed a lot about it. And by the way, between the brackets, I think the movie, it's also a good exemplification and alarm alerts for us environmentalists and activists about the way we are communicating with the public, because we are seeing very well in the movie that once the main character, the representative of the children of the earth, is going in the communities to understand what they think about the issue, I mean, the situation on the field is quite dramatic. This means that we are not properly doing our work. And when we communicate with them, it's very alarmist and very alarmist messages. We communicate a lot about the fact that the humans are perhaps less important, or this is what is understood by the public, less important than the other non-humans, even if we should be at the same level. And also about the fact that our speeches and narratives, they are quite negative, so they don't give you will to act, they don't flourish you, they don't make you thrive and willing to do stuff. It's the contrary, they cut. They seen as something that which is cutting, not growing. And this is also a very common issue in Romania. We are working a lot, myself, my colleagues, to see how we go towards the public with our problems, with our challenges of our today's societies, but not in a way that is making you fear, or that is saying that humans are less important than the other livings on the earth, but with a speech that gives you wish to act, and that through this acting that gives you a purpose in life. And we are far away from this. And I think this type of environmental conflicts, like the one in the documentary, it's clearly showing this limits of environmental narratives, and it's an alarm for us. So this was one idea I wanted to highlight, because for myself it was quite a heavy message to carry on after I've seen the movie. And related to the citizenship, I particularly liked what Ivo was saying beforehand, related to this complex thinking, complex systemic thinking that we need to have in our societies much more than before, because we are living in a world of very big challenges that are very rarely clearly understood by people. It's Timothy Morton that is calling them hyper objects, like climate change, energy issues, artificial intelligence, nuclear issues, etc. They are all topics which are defining our lives in such a big way, but they are very complex to be understood, especially by the citizens. So it's a delicate thing to ask for civic participation if we don't have this common understanding, this alphabetization of the citizens on very complex issues. I don't have a solution to it, but because in most of the times, even in this documentary, I'm sure that if people would have been brought together to decide on the fate of the highway, I don't think we would have had a nice outcome. I don't think they would have said, no, we don't want it. Even if we would explain the things properly, I don't think they would be particularly understood. So we are not properly understanding these very complex issues governing our lives, because their development is happening outside the civic arena. It's driven by some companies, by some governments, not by us, the citizens. But then we are asked to contribute and to decide on them. So this is not obvious. And the second thing is that even if we would understand this complex, these hyper objects, we would need to have a common vision of what we want our societies to look like. And this is not clear. I mean, we are living in a very consumerist, productivist, extractivist societies, and the imaginary of citizens is driven by this. I mean, I think there is one character in the movie saying, we will let behind us this huge highway. This is such a good inheritance for our children. I mean, the entire narrative that we see in our societies is very material. Yeah, it's around the objects, the cars, the highways, the clothes that are on us, the cell phones. Yeah, you understood a bit the idea, and this is driven by the media, social networks, etc. And the majority of citizens, they want this kind of stuff. So they want highways. If you ask them, I'm seeing in Bucharest, the city in which I still live, that we have mayors, because the Bucharest is divided in 6 districts, and we have some of the mayors who are saying we don't want to build infrastructure for cars, we don't want to build parks, we want to build green spaces. But if we're asking the citizens at our public meetings to come and speak about what they want, they are asking us for parkings and for parking lots, yeah, not for parks. So we need to be careful, because if we want civic participation, we also need to be aligned not only on the facts and on these complex issues, but also on the values that are the bone of our societies. And this is not obvious, and we need to decolonialize a bit our imaginaries, as a French philosopher is saying. Yeah, so we need to agree among each other what we want from our lives and from our societies, and to agree that is not consumption, is not objects, is not highways that will make us happy. But I think this is a very difficult task. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer about civic participation in this kind of issues, because I think it's a very two-facet problem.
Yeah. It made me think, where to say, it's very interesting and very, very strong what you were speaking about. And it made me think about that we maybe need like new, more innovative and inventive formats of how we talk to each other, right? Because many times when we speak about the need of public participation and mutual communication, then you have some room in some village pub, and some politicians come, and there is a discussion when the most heroic citizens are able to express their fear and some proposals and everything, and politicians always, as the more clever and more powerful man, say what would be done and why. Is very boring, is not participative at all. It's like parody on the participation, right? And it made me think that we maybe can screen the excerpt of the movie when we can see how it can look like and how dysfunctional it may be, because you could see the disinterest of the engineers and the representative of the state construction company and the local politicians, while confronted with a local person who has some problems. And it also shows, when you were speaking about like the division of humans from the nature, like we are the people and there's somewhere some nature, and that is nice, but we shouldn't be bothered by nature and it's like stupid processes. It's me, my house, my garden, and I don't give a fuck about some nature. I will go to the zoo on the Sunday maybe, but please don't bother me with the natural things now, because I don't have time to it, and I have to go to work. And it's very understandable, because at least last 30 years after the revolution, we were taught in a very intense way that we are just individuals. We should care about ourselves. We shouldn't intervene in many things. We even wouldn't understand, like the economy and other sciences. this is you, care about yourself, be a hard worker, and everything will be great. And in the moment that it doesn't happen, I was hardworking, I did care about myself, but something is bothering my life very much, as heavy trucks going round my garden, and I cannot do anything with it, and nobody's talking to me, and I have nobody to talk. I'm really in the worse situation than the frog, because frogs do have each other. It's like many animals we know, they live in crowds. There is heavy communication. We as a people, we are stuck in our houses. We don't talk to each other. Politicians never go to our areas to talk with us. They just talk about us very badly in the media. And I think in the video, the first video, we can read it. So I propose that we can watch this 1 minute now.
Takže přátelé, máte ještě něco? Chcete se ještě, než ukončíme naše setkání, vyjádřit, pan?
Já mám kousek od silnice za hradu. 200 árů, v hodnotě odhadní zhruba 400 000. A na to mám nemovitost. Já bych dnes odsud se stěhoval okamžitě, nemůžu. Protože díky protahování ty dálnice, ať už to dělá kdokoliv, tak ta moje nemovitost a další jedna vedle druhý jsou neprodejný. Takže já nemůžu nakládat v této svobodné demokratické společnosti s vlastním majetkem. Nemůžu. Já se můžu pokusit to prodat. Tam už lidi nabízeli baráky, šli pod cenu. Nikdo jim to nekupuje. To je život. A jak jsem tady vyrozuměl, tak vy nás odsuzujete k tomuto životu do roku 2015. Jo? Nevím, jestli se pletu, okamžitě mi opravte, omluvím se. A jenom proto, že když to nejde po stavební stránce, nebo když už se to trochu pohne, tak vylezou pan Patrik a dnešní zákony jim normálně umožňují dosáhnout toho stavu, že ze všech živých i neživých tvorů v českém středohoří je homo sapiens jediný, který není chráněný.
Yeah, the last sentence is brilliantly constructed. It's unbelievable. Maybe it disappears in English translation, but in Czech language, that's fantastic how he expressed his opinion about the human conditions in his area. But what we can see there, I think his angriness should be taken seriously, because really it really destroys his life. And you can see that disinterest of the local politicians and those construction engineers and everybody, because for them it's already just phrases. After so many years of this endless construction, they heard it so many times, but they cannot do anything. The reason they cannot tackle that is that the basic problem was in the start of the whole project, because that time they didn't consult the public in the appropriate way, how they should accordingly to the law. And from that time they had the problems at the courts and everything. So they really confronted by this man, they really cannot do anything. And this is the problem that almost nobody didn't understand. and it was also media, like regional or like Republic media. They really couldn't discover what is the problem. So most time they ended up by telling that it's the fault of the activists, and they are guilty for that, and they are killing the people. When some truck sometimes hit someone on the road, you could easily expect like 4 or 5 articles about is a murder by the activists, because the highway is not there already just because of them.
Yeah, thank you. I think also that both the snippet or the short part of the film that we just seen, and also what you just said, just really highlights the need of reflecting both on the needs of the planetary boundaries, and the people living in the communities. But the important thing that Anna mentioned earlier is, like, how do you actually confront issues that are so wicked that there are no right solutions? What I found really interesting is that we live in a political system that functions within 4-year spaces, right? So naturally, the politics and the people constructing the highways are pushed to come up with easy solutions and quick solutions that are going to bring some of an ease to the local communities when it comes to all the noise and the transport. But really, the underlining issue behind it all is not only the highway itself, but like what the highway represents. And that's what I think you mentioned earlier, Anna, is the never-ending drive to be faster and the way the world functions. So my question would be, how do we really function with that? And what maybe would be even more interesting question is whether this is somehow different in our context, meaning Central and Eastern Europe, from other countries around Europe, maybe. So Anna, would you like to take the question?
I know Ivo said that it's a lot related to our common communist history. The fact that we are very individualist, very oriented towards ourselves, our own welfare, not having this purpose of society, of collective action. I would nuance it a bit, and I would argue that I think this is a reflection of our entire societies from our last decades. I mean, if you're going to the United States, they had absolutely no communist past, or even in Western Europe, in Asia, etc. I would say that that individualism is a characteristic of our societies, because this is how our societies are working. Yeah, when we are oriented towards ourselves, our own good, we consume a lot, we work a lot to have things to consume, etc. So this makes this big economic engine work. So I wouldn't say it's just a matter for this part of Europe. And I've this time, I think I got interrupted for 1 second. Yeah, now it's fine. Yeah. So this type of development, we have the feeling that it's from ancient times, but it's very, very short in the history of humankind. It basically started with the industrial revolutions, and it accelerated a lot after the Second World War. So until then, the world that we were living had no highways, no electricity, no mobile phones. So the world we were inheriting from our parents and grandparents was quite identical. What we are living for 1, 2, 3 generations now is that we are each time inheriting a world which is so different from the one that was beforehand, that it's a revolution happening taking place each year. So this is we call it like the great acceleration of our times. that is translated into huge consumptions of natural resources, starting with fossil fuels, water, biodiversity, which is translated into a big development of our societies, of infrastructure, of transport, of cars, of everything which is around us. But this is very, very short, very recent in our societies. And the problem, especially with infrastructure, is that because our world is changing so fast, what we have been building over the last decades and what we are building now will not anymore be adapted to the new regimes in which we will be living, climate, biodiversity, etc. Even I think that in the movie at the end, the constructor is saying that this was a project planned in the 60s. So after the World War II, when in the wars, what we have been doing, we have been using massive amounts of resources to build tanks, to build infrastructure so that we can move, etc. We needed to find débouchés, as we call it in English, to find markets for this kind of dynamics that we had in the Second World War. So we needed to start building, etc. And we built a lot of infrastructure, including highways. So this type of highways from the Czech Republic is an example of infrastructure that we planned 6 decades ago, when the world had absolutely nothing to do with the world in which we are living now. And it won't have nothing to do with the world in 2, 3, 4 decades from now on, when we will have 3, 4 degrees more, when the biodiversity will go extinct, most of it extinct, when the energy mix won't look like now. So it's a big question of this huge infrastructure projects that we are building now, that we have been building over the last decades. What kind of relevance they will have already they don't have this relevance in our societies, but I'm sure that in the next decades they will be even less relevant, and it will be also an issue of what our kids will tell about them. How will you explain to a kid that you have invested billions of tons of cement and you have destroyed lands and forests to build such a highway when we won't have gas anymore, or when we won't want to use gas to fuel our cars? And I find it funny that the NGO taking care of this issue is the Children of the Earth. So it's a really nice intergenerational approach.
Yeah, thank you very much for this thought, because I was thinking that when we are speaking about like society, we are merely speaking about adults. And with the adults, is a problem. That's very difficult to educate the adults in anything, because adults most time are not very willing to be educated, because they already know. They've been doing things like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. They don't want to find out anything new, because it just threatens them, right? Especially about basic things about how the world works, right? To me, it's a very important thing to target on kids. Like if you explain the kid the problem, that why is the problem when you do something in the forest and the frogs disappear, and what happens next, and what does that mean, and how the whole system in the forest and the pond works. Even small kids can understand it, and they think about it like heavily, because their world is small, and everything you say is important, and it constructs the imagination of the world. And I think they are the target group of how to think about the world, because it's a lost time to speak with the adults, because they are just stuck in the consumer things they bought and changed for their labor time and everything, and they were keen about keeping that how it was and everything. And I wanted to screen another excerpt, because you were very nicely and interestingly talking about our fascination by the objects, and especially with the objects we humans made. when the object is a rock made by nature, well, we can be fascinated. But if we did the highway, it's a very different and more important thing. And I think there's a moment that very nicely illustrates the difference um between the thinking between the activist and the construction engineer. So if we can please play the excerpt number 2.
Gesto rozmáchlý, elegantní. Je to zajímavý. Já už tady stojím na tom místě asi po pátý a vždycky prostě takovýhle pocit mám, že to prostě je takový lehký, takový moderní v tom, že to je jednoduchý a přitom je to krásný. No, myslím si, že vnoučata si budou mít na co koukat tady. A ne vnoučata, že jo, ale lidi obecně jako takový, když tady jdou, teď tady výjdou a vynořejí se, tak si myslím, že jako je to spíš pro ně pozitivní v objevení, než jaký by třeba někdy vyplynulo z toho, co jako píšou v těch novinách ty škarohlídové a takový ty zastánci čistého prostředí. Žádný čistý prostředí v této společnosti, myslím, jako lidský tady neexistuje. Není.
No já si myslím, že to vypadá hlavně směšně, no, že tady jako zbourají český středohoří, zbourají kde co, a kapličku tu nechají jako důkaz, jak jsou kulturní. No. Jak ty naši stavaři jsou kulturní lidé, nebo projektanti. To je podle mě jako symbolický. Když tady zachovali kapličku, tak by mohli taky zachovat přírodu, že? Mohli tam postavit dlouhý tunel.
Yeah. And of course, the chapel is also like a human-made object, but in this context, I mean, it's closer to the nature more than to the highway, because it's from deeper history, something like soil in the land. It's part of history. It's part of identity, and maybe the highway once becomes the same thing. But I wouldn't think so.
And if I would add just one thing related to this fascination for objects. I left in the movie because I saw so many trucks, bulldozers, compressors, etc. I remembered when I have a 6-year kid, and he's a boy. So when he was very young, so he was 1 or 2, we were spending like hours, and I'm not exaggerating, for him to look at the way this type of machines they work. So he had and not only him, I mean, generally the kids, they have this fascination for this type of objects because they show power.
Yes.
And the adults, they also like it because it's a sign of huge human power of men over nature. And this is a huge obsession that we have from very ancient times. And I liked a lot in the documentary this presence of the bulldozers, of the tanks, which are, by the way, it's an inheritance from the world wars. Yeah, let's not forget about this. We didn't have them beforehand. So they are kids of the war. And our obsession and fascination for this type of objects, which are very present in the documentary. And I think there are signs of this obsession that we have for power and for conquering and conquering nature. And so with kids, I mean, I had to explain a lot of times to my kid, these are not nice objects, so stop fascinating about them. They consume huge amounts of energy. They do like this with the soil, and they now he has a much more calibrated relationship with this type of instruments, but it's clearly a human obsession for highways and for trucks and compressors, and that this documentary is highlighting so nicely.
Yeah, but I must say that these powerful construction vehicles that can transform like millions of tons of soil very easily are also very much fascinating for us filmmakers because it's heavy, it looks powerful, and it's moving, That's very important to us.
Yes, yes, yes.
And but we also spend a lot of time filming that because it's a very different story if you see the preparation of the landscape for the highway, and you wouldn't see it anything like this like after once the construction is ready. It looks like nothing happened, that just some abstract power just put the line of cement to the country and nothing like happens. But if you are at the construction site while you really have to transform all the soil everywhere, then you can see how big impact it's bring to the landscape. That really means something. And finally, we were lucky, like for the film, not very lucky as citizens, that it also shown in the end of the film that it's not that automatically fine and okay thing to transform the landscape in this way, because once the hill during the heavy rains goes down and sits on the highway, uh, in that moment is happening what the geologists and other scientists so many decades were afraid from and warned that that might happen in that part of the highlands. And so if you connect that moment with all those aesthetic shots of those construction vehicles, and that many years you are seeing how the soil is like transformed in a very huge amounts, and that really it means something for the whole geological system. And if this means something for the whole geological system in the place, then it means also something for the ecosystems. And this is what finally at the editing room we were thinking about. We were not thinking about that heavily while shooting, because these are the things that sometimes you just don't think about because you target on many practical things and problems. For example, how to get some characters willing to shoot. But in editing room, you have plenty room to think what this all can mean and what can be like deeper meaning of the things than you thought while shooting that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I also think that, the except also shows quite nicely the very man that was so fascinated by the bridge that he built, or the construction work as well. At the very end of the film was actually he himself very skeptical about the transformation of transport, right? And how will we transport in the future? But I think that would be another discussion, a very interesting one. How will all the highways that we've collectively built or like were built by our states will look like in like 30 years, whether we will still ride them with thousands and thousands of cars, or whether trains are going to be more popular. But I feel that's depending on our collective imaginaries, as have been mentioned during the discussion quite often, and what we imagine as the future we would like to have. So I'm going to leave all of us with that last question as maybe a thinking material, and would love to thank both of my guests who have been amazing, and wish you a lovely day.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.